The Toronto Raptors get a much needed win, and this win, like many of their other wins, followed a very predictable pattern. Two things typically go right when the Raptors win. Number one, Jakob Poeltl looks playable like an NBA player. Number two, they usually have some practice time. And the Toronto Raptors had some practice time. After that embarrassing loss to the New York Knicks, the Raptors took some time. They sent everyone home. And then they had a few days of practice straight. And for a young team, Darko has talked about this many times. This is a team that needs practice. Now, it's worth noting that the Toronto Raptors defense and offense have both been sliding down a little bit over the last 7, 8 games. And this is a team that was definitely going the wrong way in terms of momentum. After winning the 9 straight and looking absolutely unbeatable, they look like a team that barely could win a game. They again and again and again repeatedly had given up over 100 points. The last time they really were on a winning streak, they held the Indiana Pacers to 95 points, but that's the Indiana Pacers. This is the Miami Heat. And this is not just the Miami Heat. This is the 10-3 at home Miami Heat. This is also the Miami Heat team that you have not beat in Miami since 2022. We are almost in 2026. This is not an easy team to beat. And quite frankly, I actually felt like this Heat team was playing a lot better before Tyler Hero came back. That's not to say Tyler Hero is not a great player. Tyler Hero is an awesome player, but something about their defense and their pacing and really just how they play looked a lot better without him earlier in the season. Now, this was not going to be an easy win, and early on, it looked like it as the Raptors came out to a very bad start in the first quarter. Let's take a look at how this game went. Salute to the chat. Salute to all of you. Please like the video on the way in. And yeah, this was not a game that you were supposed to win. I'm going to be honest. Vegas very heavily favored the Miami Heat in this game. And that means the betting odds were very much in favor, which means people were looking at the Raptors as they were going to lose this game. Okay. I think the Heat came in as 7-point favorites in this game. And, early on, it kind of looked like it made sense. The Heat fluctuated between 72% and 58% odds of winning this game through most of it. And then in the third quarter, the Raptors took a brief lead where it popped up a little bit, but then the Heat ended the third quarter on a little bit of a run. The Raptors, disastrous end to that third quarter, where Emmanuel quickly immediately turns the ball over. And then on the other end, a step back three from Davion Mitchell, and it's an immediate 5-point swing. And it looks like in the fourth quarter, the Heat are entering with all the momentum. And Darko Rajakovic, to his credit, I guess, decides to start the quarter out with Brandon Ingram on the bench with all the momentum on the Heat side. And somehow the Raptors answer the call and go on a huge run. A lot of it because of their defense. And I think that defense is probably how the Raptors won this game. They hold the Miami Heat to 42% from the field, 29% from three, and they force 19 turnovers and match them on the rebound department. Rebounding is not easy against this team. They have Bam Adebayo, they have Kalel Ware, they have Jaime Jaquez, they have Andrew Wiggins. They have a lot of big guards, and they have athletic guards who crash the boards. And this is a team that executes a lot of proper spacing, takes a lot of threes, long shots, long rebounds, and the Raptors have just not dealt well with this type of opponent. Taking a look at the box score, it was a masterclass of shot making from Brandon Ingram. Also, Ingram, who had for quite a while there for the first little part of the season, shooting like 29 to 30% from three, has been shooting close to 42% from three for the month of December. Not a lot of games, but this is hopefully something that is turning a corner for Brandon Ingram. This was a mega game from him in terms of shot making, not a mega game in terms of taking care of the ball, though. A lot of turnovers, a lot of crazy shots, a lot of sloppy turnovers. Scotty Barnes, a game of two halves, really. In the first half, we'll talk about Scotty Barnes later. I did not like this game from Scotty Barnes in the first half. It was awful. Emmanuel quickly, again, it's weird to say that a guy who had 3 turnovers, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and 15 points didn't play well. He didn't play well. I don't think he played well. His shot selection, how he got the Raptors into the offense, he was a part of 3 of the absolute worst stretches of this game for the Toronto Raptors. Ochai Agbaji was a pretty much non-consequential basketball player out there. He didn't make too many mistakes, so shout outs to him. Off the bench, I think Jamal Shed, Sandro Mamukelashvili, Grady Dick, Colin Murray-Boyles. I think those four really turned around the game. Jacoby didn't get a lot of minutes in this game, but the minutes that those four played with whoever they played with, whether it was Scotty Barnes, whether it was Brandon Ingram, I think that they absolutely turned this game around. And it's really in different ways. With Grady, it was a lot of just making shots in timely possessions, picking up the pace, running around a bunch of screens, scrambling the defense up, but also his defense, just being like persistent, poking at the ball. A lot of embarrassing drive-bys on him, blow-bys where he gives up something that probably he shouldn't. But overall, I think Grady held his own defensively. And obviously, there's certain matchups like Jaime Jaquez and Bam Adebayo where he's just not going to be able to do anything. But just being in the right place can make you such a better team defender. I think he did a lot of that. Colin Murray-Boyles, again, the box score says 4 points. The box score says -2. He and Grady Dick are the two bench players who are negative in terms of the plus minus stuff. But I think just his activity level defensively, the block on Bam Adebayo, Jack Armstrong with the all-time call said Bam looking like pebbles right now. Hilarious after sharing that Bam Adebayo actually got his nickname because of the character Bam Bam on Flintstones. So shout outs to you if you're familiar with the Flintstones. Bam looking like pebbles is an all-time call for me. And Jamal Shed, just the maestro, right? 3 for 9 from the field, 2 for 6 from three. Took a couple of bailout shots, frankly. I don't hold the 2 for 6 against him. But man, just like a maestro in terms of controlling the pace, getting guys easy looks, setting up the offense, organizing the offense, making sure guys get touches, making sure that guys aren't missed open, making sure that there's some like rhythm and flow to the basketball game. And then, of course, just picking up defensively, right? Doing a lot of Davion Mitchell stuff, which was good, right? On the other end, you get a 20 points from Norman Powell, but not an effective 20 points, right? Missed a lot of bunnies around the rim. I think the Raptors did a really good job for the most part of recovering to shooters. And, you get Davion Mitchell going 2 for 6, Norman Powell going 2 for 7 from 3, Simone Fontecchio going 1 for 4, and Andrew Wiggins going 2 for 5, Bam Adebayo going 1 for 3. The first one that he hit was on a late closeout by Quickly. And then after that, the Raptors just adjusted. Jakob Poeltl did a pretty decent job of staying on the perimeter and trying to just, get into Bam's dribble a little bit. And yeah, I think the time off did Jakob a lot of good. I think he just looked a lot better today overall. There was a fast break where he was dribbling the ball and, he did have 4 turnovers today, but overall, I think he just played a slightly better game and he just looked a little bit looser, a little bit more mobile, a little bit less ground bound. When he has not looked right, it has been like mobility issues, lateral issues. He had that huge block today, coming out of nowhere. His stagnation and regression statistically from last year to this year has been very real. And, when he's gone right, the Raptors have been better teams. So shout outs to him. And off the bench, they get 10 points from Jaime Jaquez and 11 points from Drew Smith. But other than that, you keep their bench somewhat quiet. Nikola Jovic, he gets injured in the first minute of his game trying to go up on a dunk on Colin Murray-Boyles. So he was a huge miss in terms of them. He's had a really, really good year this year. And Khalil Ware I didn't really feel his presence, but on the glass, he was a terror for them just getting on the glass. I think he had how many offensive rebounds? He had 3 offensive rebounds. So yeah, so overall, I think the Raptors win this game on the defensive end. Their defense obviously was a lot better than it looked last time against New York. They gave up 35 points in the opening quarter against New York. Granted, this is, you can probably point to like, oh, this is not the New York Knicks. Statistically, they've been just about as good, if not a better offense than the Knicks. So let's take a look. The aforementioned statistical regression of Jakob Poeltl. This is this year. This is last year. Take a look at what has happened to our dear Jakob Poeltl. He has gone from a 1.7 box plus minus. The effective field goal percentage and field goal percentage overall are up, but look at those block and steal numbers last year: 1.1 blocks, 1.1 steals, 9.2 rebounds. Everything is just in the wrong direction right now. We have gone from 2.2 stocks to 1.3 stocks. That is half. Right. And his minutes aren't cut enough to justify this type of regression. So he's just looked a lot less active. He's looked a lot less coordinated. He's having a much harder time catching the basketball. So overall, it's just been like a really tough go at it for Jakob Poeltl. And his last interview just discussing, the back issues, which, I think was welcome, hello and welcome. They had an interview with him where he was talking about it. And uh, man, it's tough because he does not seem it. Emmanuel quickly posted a picture of the man entering a cryo chamber. Like, the other day, it's looking bad for Jakob Poeltl right now, to the point where it is very obvious to me and pretty much everybody that the Raptors desperately need to start investing in future post Yak. And it would really, really make you feel a lot better if they had a young center who was ready to step into that position at some point. They don't have one. So right now, there's rumors that the Raptors are looking at Daniel Gafford, are definitely not looking at Anthony Davis, could be looking at Goga Batadze. Those are rumors that came out today. Certainly, I would love for them to look at Day'Ron Sharpe. I think Day'Ron Sharpe is very underrated and would probably cost a hell of a lot less than Goga Batadze. But, I could certainly see the logic on Goga. I could really see the logic on big fella from friggin' Santi Aldama from the Memphis Grizzlies. So that would be pretty cool. So to start this game, I said very poor start. Open three for Wiggins, Ingram sags, open three for Bam, late close up by IQ, and then 2 turnovers by Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes. Damn. The Raptors started out this game, I believe it was 2-10, 2-11. It did not look good. The Heat were on pace to score about 200 points for the first 3 minutes of this game. So it really did not look good. I said it took 3 guys to make this play happen. Salute to Jamal, CMB, and BI for forcing this turnover. And if I'm being honest, this game really turned when Scotty Barnes went to the bench and Colin Murray-Boyles came in. And it felt like, honestly, to start this game, Scotty just had the wrong energy. Wrong energy offensively, just kind of passive, running around. I didn't really talk about Scotty's game. We'll talk about Scotty's, highs and lows. But man, this was a disappointing start for the game from Scotty Barnes, who, just didn't look right mentally, right? Like he just had the wrong approach to this game mentally. And someone saying Aldama is a small forward, power forward. Yeah, I got you. But I'm talking about a 7-footer on the roster, obviously. The Raptors play Mamu Kelishvili backup 5 minutes. He is also a small forward / power forward. So, not really putting anything on that. But yeah. And I mean, it helps when you have Zach Edey on the roster. Okay. Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. probably make it a lot more likely that you're going to play power forward or small forward. I don't think Santi plays a ton of small forward minutes, but yeah. Anyways, here you see Jamal Shed digging to the basketball. This extra effort forces Jaime Jaquez to drop the ball. And here CMB gets after the ball, gets on the ground, flips it over to Ingram, and then Ingram beats Wiggins to the basketball and forces it out of bounds. That's hustle, man. And that's the first play that I wanted to talk about because honestly, it was good to see. It was really good to see. By the way, call-in link is in the description. I'm going to post it here as well in case y'all want to talk about this game. You want to talk about trades. You want to talk about the Toronto Raptors in general. Here is the call-in link. Okay, here we go, man. Jamal Shed, proper. Okay, this is a play to end the first quarter. I loved it. And this is exactly what I'd like to see Brandon Ingram do more of. Now, there was a lot of times today where Ingram really chose to trust his teammates. This is one of them. There's a few times where he chose not to trust his teammates, and we're going to look at one of those possessions. But the more Ingram trusts his teammates, regardless of what may come, right? Make the right play. The right play here as the defense is starting to load up. You can see Jaime Jaquez, considering doubling here. And boom, the minute the double comes, Ingram throws the pass over to Jamal Shed. He made a couple of really great passes, which we're not going to look at, to CMB in the second half. So clearly, CMB has earned his trust. But there are several players on this team who have not earned his trust right now, and he is just not willing to pass to them. And here, it's going to get Grady Dick a wide open 3. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but me personally, I am not like, oh, that's in when Grady takes a shot. I would expect that after, 3 years where we're talking about a marksman, we're talking about a guy who came out with this reputation as a great shooter. I am not sure even a wide open shot is like, that's in. I don't feel automatic with him. I don't feel like that way that I did with Peja Stojakovic when he took a shot, the way that I felt with Klay Thompson. But forget that. Let's not go to that extreme. Peja and Klay are 2 of the greatest 3-point shooters of all time. I don't even feel as comfortable with him taking an open 3 as I do with Brandon Ingram. I don't even feel as comfortable with him taking an open 3 as I do with Jacoby Walter. So it's just like Grady, man, like if you're going to be asked defensively, which he is at times, you got to be a lock shooter offensively. Like we're talking Duncan Robinson is the minimum level you got to get to. As a quick start for Ingram, here are some of Ingram's buckets in the first quarter. And again, this is like double screen action to get him, boom, right? Just open. Here, Grady's going to set the screen, release a little too early. And here, just a really tough shot. And, that borderline foul. There's one time where Bam fouls him on a pull-up three after he hit a few. So Ingram is going to put a lot of pressure on the defense if he can start hitting and taking enough of these threes. 7 threes is a really, really good mark for him. I would like to see him attempt 7 to 8 a game. I really don't care if he shoots 40%, 50%, 25%. I just need him to take those shots because they are a higher chance. Like he does not Kevin Durant, where you can just live on a diet of midi jump shots from the mid range and just expect to be effective. You know what I mean? There's a big reason why the advanced analytics don't love Brandon Ingram, and one of the reasons is his shot selection. So here, accept that Jaime Jaquez can outguard him one-on-one, and this is a good thing to have. Like if you're the Toronto Raptors, when they chose to play Ingram one-on-one, like it was pretty easy cookies for him. Like it was buckets and buckets and buckets for him. When they sent a double team is when he typically struggled with turnovers, or there was that play where Andrew Wiggins blocked him from behind. Those are tough plays for him to execute. But if you're the Toronto Raptors and you're trying to build out positive lineups around Brandon Ingram, you need to probably put players on the court that aren't so easy to double off of, right? Which is to say that Ingram and Scotty need exactly the same players around them, right? They need guys who can dribble, pass, shoot, guys who can spread the floor. So if you put Brandon Ingram right now in place of like Jaylen Brown in Boston, I'm not saying it's identical, but it's very similar, right? Because you have Peyton Pritchard, you have Derek White, you have, Jordan Walsh, you have guys who can space the court and guys who aren't just dead space, right? The Raptors have a lot of like dead space players, like Ochai Agbaji, when he's not being assertive and he's not cutting hard, he's dead space, right? CMB refusing to take shots underneath the rim, even though he's point blank under the rim. Scotty Barnes jogging to the corners. These are dead space players sometimes. And sometimes it allows the defense to get away with doubling Ingram without super consequences because guys don't get themselves open. So it's like that's kind of why RJ Barrett works so well, is because RJ Barrett will never let himself be guarded by one guy and then not cut. Like he'll never see open space and then not cut to it. Whereas I think some players on this team can sit a little bit too much. They can sit in the corner and just kind of allow themselves to be like, you should never have two players so close together and demanding so little gravity that they are able to be successfully covered by one defender, because that is when your other side of the court gets in trouble. And I think the Raptors far too often have that lack of motor offensively. And that's what that's what RJ does not lack, right? He always has the motor. So here, Scotty Barnes, isolation one-on-one against Jaime Jaquez. Here comes Drew Smith on the double team. Scotty spots the double team, spins to the corner, and in this absolutely ridiculous position is going to catch Jamal Shed with a perfect pass. Like this is so Jokic, it's nuts. Like and that was the right guy to pass to as well. He was the guy who was the most open. So it wasn't like one of those, bailout, throw it 8 feet off and the guy has to jump to get it. No, it was a clean pass. Here I said Scotty and Jakob looking alive, right? So I mean, both guys have had their struggles over the last few games here. Here, Scotty Barnes catches the ball here. And again, we talk about getting to your spots. We talk about getting open. This is the physics of a Scotty Barnes jump shot. You're not going to stop this. Nobody's going to stop this. When he figures out how to get to the spot, no one can stop this. He's releasing this like 11 feet into the air. Like you can do a line for line right now, and his hand is above the rim right now. That's where his jump shot releases. So when Scotty jumps, you jump past him, he just holds into the air. That's it's a very funky way of saying it's Jordan-esque, but in terms of release point, it is a little Jordan-esque. Here, the Heat running in transition, Norman Powell is going to pass the ball to Jaime Jaquez. Jaime thinks he has an angle to Scotty. Scotty does enough to stop Jaquez, and on the bump, Jakob Poeltl is able to get the block. And then the next one over, and this one is again, it's defense. Comes down to the defense. And here, you've kind of got a defender, an offensive player very much cornered up here, and that's Norman Powell. And Scotty just taps it away here. Boom and boom. And that ends up going out of bounds. There were a few plays, like I know Scotty had a bunch of steals tonight. There were a few plays that I don't think counted as steals, but they were effectively steals. There was a one play where he knocks it away from the offensive player. It goes out of bounds as he tries to save it, and it leaves like point 0.2 on the clock, and the Heat are unable to get a shot. Like to me, that's a steal. Like you saved your team points. Like the Heat had a very difficult time scoring when Scotty was on the court after the first quarter. So good stuff, man. Scotty Barnes looking alive defensively, even though offensively there was a lot to not write home about. And to end the second quarter, I said this is not how you end here. Quickly, just overthinks it, squirts out of bounds, and watch Scotty here. It's kind of funny actually. He accidentally points. He accidentally points that it's Heat ball, realizes what team he's on, and then says, no, it's actually Raptors ball, but the referees do not agree with that. And as much pleading as Emmanuel quickly wants to do, the indignation of like, what do you mean? What do you mean? No, dude, it was clearly off you, man. Like, what are you doing here? And here, probably still thinking about the last play. Like, I'm not saying Davion Mitchell is some elite pull-up shooter, but you played with this guy last year. Like, with pretty much certainty at this point that he is capable of hitting an open three. His three-point shot has come a long way since the early parts of last season. And here, Davion confidently just takes the shot and spits the shot right over a guy as if to say, hey, man, I'm making $12 million a year. This guy's making friggin' $32 million a year. I was on the same team. I got pretty much parsed out of that team for a second round pick. I'm going to prove to y'all you made a mistake. Now, I'm sure Davion's very happy here. Now, look, here's my caption to this one. There's exactly one person in the entire building who can stop Scotty Barnes from doing this, and his name is Scotty Barnes. Okay? This should be fucking automatic. This is 10 times a game. You get to this shot, no one's stopping you. I don't care if you miss 8 of them, you have to take this shot. With his broad shoulders and his like stride length, there's not a lot that teams can do to stop this. And worst case, you're going to draw a double team and you're going to find open cutters galore from that position. That is a very dangerous position for a relatively good jump shooter, good pull-up jump shooter to be in. And frankly, if you want to talk to me about the gap between RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes, apart from the massive defensive gap, it's that shot, and the ability to grow that shot. I said single coverage on Ingram is playing with fire, and I truly mean it. Jaime Jaquez cannot stop Brandon Ingram. You need to send a double team. And I think on the next play, they learned that lesson. Here, just a little bump, clear separation. This is a practice shot. Jaime Jaquez is not a great defender, but he's not a sieve. He's not a terrible defender. But here, yeah. Some very impressive defense from Colin Murray-Boyles. He had a lot of really, really impressive defensive plays tonight. We're talking chips. We're talking, pokeaways. We're talking deflections. We're talking like nearly blocks, tough shots forced at the rim. He was a wrecking ball defensively tonight. Offensively, I have a lot of concerns. Offensively, I have a lot of concerns about his propensity to pass up like wide open layups. Like there was one shot, I believe, that he attempted in the paint where it was like a run down the middle. Ingram finds him and he just kind of goes around. But right now, he doesn't seem willing to take like serious contact at the rim. And it's so funny to me because you've got two guys on your team that just relentlessly go downhill regardless of the results. And that's RJ Barrett and Grady Dick. And you got Colin Murray-Boyles, who should, at least in theory, be physically much more capable than either one of those guys at doing that, and he won't take the shot. It's like he has the yips underneath the basket. If he catches the ball underneath the basket, it is like a guaranteed he's passing the ball. It doesn't matter who's on him. There was a play when he had Norman Powell in the post. Norman is 6'2.5", 6'3", generously. CMB is a good 6'7". You should be able to pull that off and just dunk over him. But right now, it just feels like he's had his shot blocked one too many times at this level, and he does not seem willing or capable of taking those shots right now. And that's tough because that's supposed to be a huge selling point for him. But here, Bam Adebayo says, Bam asked for a repost on this. So he got the ball, didn't like where he got it, spit it out to Fontecchio, got it back, and just was like, okay, I'm going to take the rookie off. He beats Colin Murray Boyles, but this is elite, elite, elite recovery from CMB. There aren't like 30 players in the league that can do that to Bam Adebayo. He's very athletic. It's just a really difficult shot. Like, we're talking the guys who can do that. That's like Scotty Barnes can do that. Tamani Kamara can do that. Maybe Dyson Daniels can do that. Maybe a couple of like elite big men can do that. But in terms of like wings who can do that to Bam, that's not a big list. Here, shitting a little bit on Grady Dick's defense here. This play got Grady Dick chewed out on the bench. Here, Grady overstresses on trying to tag the roller here and completely misses the wide open shooter. Like, the Raptors are on the ropes here. It's 36 seconds left in the third quarter, and you give up this shot. It is ridiculous. So again, here, just a huge miscommunication. Is this because Sandro is on him? But like, Sandro's not trying to get Grady cross-matched onto Kel'el Ware. So it's just like, this is definitely a poor read on Grady and just gives them a wide open three. Wide open, unforgivable defensive lapse there. Here I say Grady defense, Grady D to Grady O. So Grady's defense here is really good. Here, first of all, Jakob Poeltl, just excellent contest at the rim. No foul, arms straight up, meeting Norman Powell at his release. Tough finish for Powell, right? That's how he went 5 for 15. Now here, Kel'el Ware gets his offensive rebound, and as he's gathering to go up, and believe me, he was going to get this dunk over Sandro Mamukelashvili, here, Grady Dick comes down and digs at the ball. And here, good pass by Quickly. Good pass. I'm so used to him just not making this pass. Honestly, it's traumatizing. But here, and Grady Dick, great read. Great read. Scotty Barnes asking for the corner shot, but honestly, I'm happy Grady just went for the easy shot, the layup, didn't overcomplicate that. I said good hoops. Jamal Shed just making basketball simple, and it's very simple. Being able to throw a pocket pass, being able to throw an entry pass. These are things that they teach you in high school, right? The QI who won. Rob, did you see Scotty's moment with his mom? Beautiful, happy for Scotty, amazing game. Also looks like he has another baby on the way. Yep, dope. Yeah, Scotty's mom and his partner were at the game. They showed them on the television many times. It's funny. Okay, so here, Mamu. You just love to see two smart basketball players in the action together. Mamu sets a screen. A little bit of separation here. The guard cannot get back. Kel'el Ware cannot recover in time. And had this closed up, look what you have created. You have created a spit back pass to Scotty Barnes or a corner pass dart to Jakob Poeltl. And because Sandro Mamukelashvili is a pretty good passer, those passes were both on the table, but instead he just takes it all the way. No video on this one. I said Smokes open layup and Shaq in a fool fashion recovers the other end by saving 2 points on the block. Let's just forget that 25-second sequence happened. Oh my God. Scotty Barnes on the wide open break just squirts out of his hands. Ball squirts out of his hands. Almost hit the top of the backboard and the shot clock. It was the weirdest play you've ever seen. Whew. This was a weird Scotty game, man. Absolutely weird. Okay. I said this is great defense, and it really is. Scotty is not on the floor here. There's 6 minutes to go in the game. The Raptors are up 10, so they're really like just trying to hold the lead here, and they're trying not to let Miami get back into the game. Here's CMB. Great defense on Jaime Jaquez. Jaquez had his way against Jakob Poeltl a couple times, but here against CMB, Nope, nothing. Bodies up, nothing. Jamal recovers to Davion Mitchell. Mitchell, very upright with the dribble, can't get an advantage. Shed knows all his tricks. Here, Jakob Poeltl recovers to Bam Adebayo. And here, Brandon Ingram is going to do just enough to force the pass here to Jaime Jaquez. And here, once again, rotate, 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 one pass over. Slight miscommunication here because you should be pre-rotating over to the corner shooter once Jamal Shed has his guy. But this lineup produced a lot defensively. And here, big shout outs to Immanuel Quickley for getting that contested rebound over Andrew Wiggins. That's not easy. Wiggins and Jaime Jaquez are much bigger players, and getting in among the trees there to get that rebound to close the possession, that was a lot of work. This game was a lot of work. Okay, like a lot of work. This was a hard fought game. Everyone was huffing and puffing in the timeouts. This was a track meet. Okay, here. This is terrible. Okay. And this is one of a few possessions where Quickly sort of milked the clock, trying to feed Ingram the ball. And it's just like he made up his mind before these possessions even started. This is going to be an Ingram possession. And I get it. Ingram's rolling. Nobody else seems to have it going. I get it. You got to get him a look, but you got to be open to a Jakob Poeltl sweat pass. You got to read the game. You can't just pre-script the game because that's what Fred VanVleet used to do. And it's just very annoying. Anyways, here you hand Ingram the ball with 5 seconds on the clock. This is not what the Raptors want to do, but for some reason, when they're holding the lead in the fourth quarter and they're up like 8-9 points, Immanuel quickly goes into default mode, which is milking the clock, and I don't like it. Just keep playing the game, right? Here, Ingram gets trapped. Now, with 3.8 seconds to go, he turns away from Quickly. He thinks about passing to Quickly, but you still got 3 seconds here. And he does not seem to know he has 3 seconds because the clear pass is to Quickly. Like they have doubled away from the best shooter on the court, the guy who is being paid $32 million just to shoot the basketball. You got 2.7 seconds. There's no way you can't make this pass. Even if you don't want to throw it over, you can poke your head through the double team and get this to Immanuel Quickley, at which point he would have a clean catch and shoot with no recovery. You can see Norman Powell is anticipating that there's going to be a pass to Immanuel Quickley, so he is trying to stunt. And here, Ingram. See, that's how bad the shot selection was. I can't even call it Ingram. This is the dumbest shot of the game. Like this and Scotty's blown layup in transition are two of the most crazy, head scratching. There was also a possession before this where, Scotty tries some crazy ass pass, then Ingram tries some crazy ass pass. Like this was back-to-back possessions, 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and your team is playing like a JV basketball team. Like fucking crazy shot selection. Doesn't even connect with the rim. And that's just nuts. Like it's just nutty basketball. And speaking of nutty basketball, this is also nutty basketball. The next possession down, as if you would think that the Raptors might have learned from their mistake. Quickly once again milks the clock. The Miami Heat front the post, deny Ingram the basketball, but Quickly is very persistent. He's got to get the ball into Ingram. So come hell or high water, he gets the ball into Ingram. Ingram gets pushed 8 feet off his spot from where he initially wanted to catch the ball. So now he's catching the ball with his back to the basket with Bam in place, Wiggins in place, Mitchell in place, and 7 seconds on the clock. This is terrible basketball. So here, Ingram once again seems to have no idea where the fuck the clock is. And this time, instead of forcing the terrible shot, he decides, I'm going to pass to Scotty Barnes, who is also contested, and give him 1.8 seconds to go on the clock. And here, Scotty, seeing the clock is at 0, basically, decides to throw it up, and the Raptors waste the fucking possession. Look, if you are going to waste 5 seconds, 4 seconds off the clock, ditch it to a guy who then proceeds to waste another 4 seconds off the clock, and then throw it to a guy and put him in a precarious situation where he's going to have 2 seconds to make a decision and he's being swarmed because he's having to basically come to the ball to bail you out. That's just bad offense. Now, a lot of people said that the Raptors offense has become very stagnant without RJ Barrett. Please tell me where RJ Barrett saves that possession. The only thing that RJ Barrett does in this situation is he gives Ingram and quickly another person to pass to. That's it. But in theory, Jakob Poeltl, Ochai Agbaji, and Scotty Barnes are human beings who play basketball as well. So you could easily make the pass to them as well if you wanted to. But here, quickly has only one option. He has to get the ball to Ingram. And Ingram has only one option, which is to get the ball back to quickly. And these two sometimes drive me crazy with this type of basketball because here you can see Scotty makes a cut to the basket, but you throw this ball off target. And here, Scotty needs to get this pass right to quickly, but realizing he doesn't have enough time, decides to take the turnover slash miss shot himself. Like, this is just bad clock awareness, and it starts with quickly dragging possessions. RJ spaces the floor and cuts. You need to watch the games, man. RJ does cut. He presents himself as a target far more often than people, but he does not space the floor as well as you think he does. I understand that cutting has a lot to do with spacing, but teams are far, far, far more likely to leave him than they are to leave Grady Dick, Jamison Battle, even Jacoby Walter. Like, teams are far, far more willing to play off of him, and teams are willing to swarm him at the paint and then force, turnovers and miss shots that way. So yeah, again, it's just like the selective, pre-scripting of basketball that quickly and Ingram can sometimes get into that makes the Raptors offensive possessions very stagnant down late. I said Scotty Barnes saves the game. Say what? Okay, cool. Now here, this possession was very ugly, very ugly. Results in an Ingram shot. And here, Scotty Barnes skies to the heavens above Norman Powell, above Andrew Wiggins, takes the shove in the back. Look at this. Look at this shove from Norman Powell. Norman Powell shoves. Weak foul. And Scotty Barnes has possibly the weirdest post-game, or like post-play celly of all time. Watch this. This is weird, man. This is passion. I don't know. He gets pushed in the back from Norman Powell. He gets held down by Davion Mitchell. That's a double foul. Okay. Now, turning around, Davion Mitchell. That is psychosis. That is psychosis, bro. That's psychosis. The man is sick. He needs some help. It's cool. It's cool. This game marks the first time any team has held Miami to under 100 points. So big W Raptors. This game was huge, but you're not out of the woods yet, right? There's still a lot that has to be settled. I agree. WWE vibe, Scotty. I think there's some mention of Scotty potentially auditioning, or he's going to be in the Nutcracker. Am I right on that? I believe it's something about the Nutcracker. So if Scotty's going to be in the Nutcracker, the next call I think he needs to make is to Vince McMahon or to Hunter Hearst Helmsley or whoever the hell is running the WWE right now, and to get himself into the WWE. Like, we need Scotty Barnes on WWE. And yeah, I mean, if Tyrese Halliburton is in WWE, like, we need Scotty in the WWE. Like, he would be like an all-time wrestler in WWE. First of all, in the WWE, the reason you don't want to have Scotty Barnes is because Scotty Barnes is legitimately taller than a lot of guys that they list at 7 feet. So I don't know if y'all know this, but a lot of the guys that they have listed at 6'11", 7 feet tall, they're about 6'7", 6'8". So Scotty would immediately come in and he would be, jumping over the top rope like a 7-footer. So that might be a little bit weird because I think Scotty is like almost exactly the same height as Kevin Nash, who has been listed about 6'11" to 7 feet his whole life. So that's probably funny. It's also worth noting that he's probably a lot stronger than a lot of those doped out, WWE wrestlers. So I just think Scotty would be a perfect ad for the WWE, but he would have to have a different alter ego, probably need to wear a mask. And then, there'd have to be some big reveal. Maybe they can call him the Raptor and then, like very, very subtly hint at it the whole way through. Be like, there's the Raptor, and he'd be doing like all the Scotty Barnes mannerisms, but he'd be wearing like he'd be wearing a mask or some shit. Bucks on Thursday, Celtics after that. The Raptors have Penn thinks Scotty should be your chef too. My chef? What do you mean, my chef? Huh? You better clarify that conversation. That comment, man. What does that mean? Okay. So, in terms of the schedule, the Toronto Raptors have a pretty light schedule coming up before it gets extremely, extremely difficult. Let's take a look at that schedule right now and see what is ahead. The Raptors have again 3 days, which is a welcome pace break for the Raptors, who have been just on a horrible schedule lately. So the NBA Cup game is tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. It is tomorrow, right? Yeah, the New York Knicks versus the San Antonio Spurs. Who saw that coming? I ran a poll on who is going to win the NBA Cup, and I swear 91% of my followers, myself included, thought the OKC Thunder were going to win. So, phew, the Spurs served the Thunder some humble pie. Go Spurs. Absolutely, man. I am rooting for the Spurs 100% of the way. I don't know if they're going to win, but damn, that was great. That was a great game. So the Raptors have the Giannis-less Bucks and then the Boston Celtics, who just lost to the Detroit Pistons tonight. So that is 2 games. And then they have Brooklyn, then they have Miami, and then they have Washington. So it's like you got a 6-game stretch here, and you've got to go at minimum, honestly, 4-2 would be the minimum mark. 5-1 would be the desired mark. 6-0 would be just excellent. So you would basically go into December 28th, which is Golden State Chef Curry coming to Toronto on a 6-game win streak. That would be brilliant. But yes, and you should get RJ Barrett back around that Brooklyn game, more than likely Brooklyn or Miami at Miami. So it'll be another road game in Miami. And then you got Orlando, Denver, Atlanta, Charlotte, Boston. Sad news about Kristaps Porzingis potentially going to be out for quite a while for Atlanta. So that does remove a very important piece of the Atlanta puzzle. And I think they are a fundamentally worse team without him. Trae Young is soon to come back for Atlanta. And if you remember the last time the Raptors played Atlanta with Trae Young, or anybody played Atlanta with Trae Young, they are decidedly worse with Trae Young so far. So we'll see how that situation boils out. And then, of course, the Raptors have Charlotte, Boston, Philly, Indiana, LA, Clippers, Los Angeles Lakers, Golden State Warriors, Sacramento Kings. So, I mean, realistically, look, you're 16-11 right now. You can get to 17, 18, 19, 20. You can get to 20 wins by Golden State at least, right? Before Golden State, you can get to 20. If you just win 4 out of the next 5, at least, you're at 20 wins, 12 losses. That gives you a very nice cushion for the rest of the season. And I will tell you that the Raptors' schedule to close the year is pretty decently hard, right? You got Miami, New York, Boston, Memphis. Like, that's tough. At Memphis, who knows where Memphis is right now? Maybe at that point they're chasing the play-in. That's going to be a desperate team. Maybe the Sacramento Kings have elevated themselves. Maybe Detroit is chasing seeding. Orlando could be chasing seeding. New Orleans has no reason to tank at that point in the season. I think initially when we walked into the season, there was a lot of talk about, oh, the Raptors are going to have a lot of teams again, a lot of games against tanking teams later in the season. I don't necessarily see that to be the case. I mean, who are the tanking teams here? Utah is the one tanking team. So that's one, right? Brooklyn is a second tanking team. That's 2. Maybe Sacramento would be 3. Maybe Chicago, although I doubt it, would be 4. Who's the other tanking team? Dallas, maybe. If they traded Anthony Davis at that point or not chasing the play-in. Washington. Like between February 28th, which is Penn Dance time. So I'm not going to be able to cover that Washington game, but that's the only game I'm going to miss, which is great. And Brooklyn, that's it. That's like Brooklyn, Washington, New Orleans. And again, New Orleans is not a tanking team at that point because they don't have their pick. So it doesn't matter. Like this is not going to be some sort of easy home stretch for the Raptors down the stretch where, you just have a bunch of games against Washington and Indiana down the stretch where you're like, okay, they're going to be resting guys. They're going to give us wins. It is interesting, of course, to note that the Toronto Raptors just keep playing teams at not full strength. But it's also worth noting that yesterday something very interesting happened. Would you like to know what happened yesterday? Yesterday, The Cleveland Cavaliers lost to the Charlotte Hornets in overtime. This is not a typo. This is not a joke. And yes, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Jared Allen all played. So it's like, where are we in the East right now? Right? Like, take a look at the standings real quick. The Raptors right now hold sole ownership of the third seed. If the playoffs were to start right now, you would face the Philadelphia 76ers, which would be interesting because the last time the Raptors were in the playoffs, they faced the Sixers, but the Raptors were the lower seed. But here, the Raptors would face the Sixers right now. As it stands right now, Cleveland and Atlanta, Miami and Milwaukee would all be in the play-in. The East is weird, man. But that being said, Charlotte is not that far out. I mean, Charlotte is 13 games back of Detroit. The Raptors, who were once 1 game behind Detroit, are now 5.5 games behind Detroit. So it's worth noting that with all the losing that you have done over the last month, and Lord knows you have done a lot of losing over the last month, you potentially are still like about to. I mean, if Boston loses a few more games, because I feel like Boston's overachieving right now. I really do. I feel like people are going to catch up to them. And Orlando is without Franz for a little while, and now they're going to be without Jalen Suggs for a little while. So they could fall a little bit. We know that Philly is, there's a propensity for Philly to fall off a little bit. So Rob, did you see VanVleet interview on Hello and Welcome? It's VanVleet, V. I don't understand why people always call him VanVleet. It is VanVleet. And no, I did not. But I am aware of it. I saw a short clip of it on socials, and I know it's like an hour-long interview with Fred VanVleet. But something that I've noticed about Fred VanVleet, podcasts, is they are rarely as honest as you would want them to be. So listening to him discuss like what happened in Toronto, drumming it up, especially given like the people who are asking the questions have every vested interest in preserving their own narrative. I'm good off of it, man. I'm sure at some point, I'll be cooking and I'll listen to a bit of it, but I'm good, man. Daryl saying I watched it on my way to work this morning. Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's cool, man. Like I happen to know a lot about VanVleet's situation in Toronto when he was here, and I know like what the situation was, like why he left, how he felt, and stuff like that. So 2 years later, 2.5 years later, I don't necessarily need like a rewrite of it. Fred was honest. Cool. That's good. I'm glad, man. I'm glad. He is now the NBA, I think Players Association president right now. So that's pretty cool. That's They mentioned you, Rob, indirectly. Well, it is always indirect, isn't it? What did they say? Going to the Boston game, anything to look for? If you were going to the Boston game, what would you want to look for? I would look at their spacing. Just always look at their off-ball spacing, and their spacing principles are impeccable. Yeah. Fred said you're a good creator. Oh, did he? That's cool. Who the fuck is Davion Sharp? They mentioned Kawhi had no intentions of staying in TO from beginning. Yeah, I mean, I've certainly heard that he had no intentions of it, and he had told some people, when he got here, like, I have no idea why they traded for me, and come hell or high water, I'm gonna leave, but I'm gonna leave y'all with something. Like, he said something to that effect to the entire locker room. Like, I think he said it to Kyle and those guys. He also says something like, to Kyle, like, he said, I think he said something like this to Kyle, is the story that I'd heard, where he had said to Kyle, I know you're upset. I know you're upset, with the team, but we got a real good group here. I'm probably going to leave in a year, but while I'm here, we got a chance to do something special, so we might as well do it. I think we have what it takes to win a championship. So I know your friend got traded and you're upset about it, but if you put that aside, I think we have a chance to do something special. So it's cool. You're supposed to defend your chip. Well, not everyone has to defend their chip, I guess. Kawhi leaving Toronto for Clippers created the OKC dynasty. Yes, it did. Are BI's turnovers alarming, or are you willing to live with it? I'm definitely not willing to live with it, and it is certainly alarming. He has certainly, I think, so much of what Brandon Ingram can't do right now is being exacerbated by the Raptors' lack of spacing around him sometimes, and his own at times unwillingness to trust his teammates. Like you can see almost every single time there is a turnover, it is an indirect result of a bad decision that was made or wasn't made. It might be over penetrating, it might be, over dribbling, it might be rushing, dragging the offensive possession, it might be waiting too long to make a move, it might be, like that possession with Scotty Barnes having to hoist the ball at the rim. That's basically a turnover from my perspective. And it's like you give a guy a ball, you give the guy a ball facing away from the basket, not even going towards the basket with 2 seconds, 1.5 seconds to go, you're forcing that player into a turnover. So to me, that's just slowing down possessions in order to not speed up, but then the speed is what creates the turnovers. I've seen many bad turnovers from BI where it looks like he was just sleeping when doubled. Yeah, he doesn't spot the help very easily. There was a play today where Scotty nearly got stripped uh, way too easily. And Lance Scott saying BI telegraphs passes. I agree with that. Brandon Ingram certainly telegraphs a lot of passes. Like there's too many times where everybody knows exactly what you're doing, so you gotta do the opposite thing. And again, the turnovers that quickly, and sometimes, like I always say, I've said this my whole life. Like this is not just a new thing. This is me. I've been saying this since I was 16 or 17 years old that all turnovers are not equal, right? Like there are some times where you get a turnover because you see something a little early and other people don't see it. So at that point, like you want the guy to be in the right spot. You want him to move, shift into the cut. He doesn't cut. You throw the ball. He doesn't respond. Boom. Or sometimes, you make the right pass to a guy, but he slips. The ball slips out of his hands. He wasn't expecting it because he's not aware. He's not alert. He's off the ball. Those turnovers don't bother me as much as those live ball turnovers where you are clearly about to do one thing. The defense starts to load up, projecting that one thing. You don't spot the defense loading up on your decision, and then you don't have the wherewithal to reverse your decision. So when the defense overplays one decision, it is a perfect opportunity to do the opposite, right? So if the defense overplays you for a pass, it's a perfect opportunity to shoot. And you've got to be, if you're a lead initiator, if you're a point guard, if you're someone who scores the basketball a lot, you've got to be constantly dancing with the defense. You've got to be, manipulating the defense. Shea, Jokic, these guys are really good at manipulating the defense. So if they overforce left, Shea will just take a dribble step back right. If they're overplaying for the pass, Shea will just split the double and just go right to the rim. It's just a constant like understanding and reading of the court. I think if we're looking at players on this team who read the court very well, it's obviously Jamal Shed and Scotty Barnes. Like they read the court very, very well. RJ Barrett also reads the court pretty well. But apart from that, everyone else has got like major issues in terms of just understanding like what we're doing here. Um, but yeah, like let's pray for a little bit of health here. Let's pray for a little bit of health. Priceless Entertainment said it was refreshing watching Scotty play good after the Knicks game. I don't think he played that good. I'm gonna be honest with you. He had a couple of heroic blocks in the fourth quarter, but a lot of them were following up his own mistakes. I think the first half was abysmal. He needs to not play that way ever. Like I don't want to see another quarter like that for the rest of my life from Scotty Barnes. Is unbecoming of any player on a max contract who aspires to be all NBA, to play that pathetic for an entire first quarter. Like you just can't. You can't do that. It's deflating for your team. It sets you off on the wrong tone. I don't care if you're going to take 2 shots in a first quarter. They have to be aggressive shots. I don't give a shit if you're gonna foul. It has to be an aggressive foul. Like I want everything you do to be aggressive, and I can't. I thought that Knicks game was like the bottom of the barrel for Scotty. I thought, this is an absolute outlier performance. Reminded me of year 2 Scotty. It was horrible basketball. He sucked offensively, defensively. He absolutely sucked. Like he sucked in that game. Like to the point where I think the Raptors were better with Scotty Barnes on the bench in against the Knicks. And I don't think it has anything to do with the Knicks. I think it has everything to do with Scotty Barnes. And that's kind of, the frustrating part with Scotty sometimes is with a lot of players, their process is one way, but the defense can stop it, right? So with Grady's consistent, right? He's always going to gamble. He's always going to dig. He's always going to reach. When teams are dumb about it, he gets steals. When teams are smart about it, he gets fouls. But it's not, oh, Grady just decided not to drive the basketball today. He's always going to take it strong to the basket. He's always going to attack. He's always going to try to draw charges. He's always going to take open shots in the corner. It's a relentless, consistent process. But sometimes the other team puts a player with a little bit more strength and he can't finish at the basket. It's the same thing with Jamal Shed, right? Sometimes the shot's going to go in, sometimes shot's not going to go in, but you can tell there's a consistent process with Jamal Shed. RJ Barrett, same thing. Very consistent process with his game. He's always going to put his head down. He's always going to drive downhill. One-on-one defensively, he's always going to take some pride in the matchup. He's always going to try to hip thrust, hip check the guy, hip thrust the guy. Holy shit, pause. He is always going to try and, chest to chest bump the guy. He's always going to try to, be physical. He's always going to play with a lot of physicality, right? Now, some days the three is going to go in. Some days the three is not going to go in, but he's always going to take the open shot. With Scotty, it's really fucking roll of dice. It's really roll of dice. Sometimes it's going to come out and he's going to be super assertive, getting to the basket, getting, to the foul line, ripping through, forcing his way to the basket, dribbling, taking open shots. And then some days, same thing, pushing the ball in transition, being a playmaker, forcing the defense to guard him, getting one foot into the paint. Some days are going to go like that. And then some days we're going to get a first quarter like today, where it's like, you're not even on the court. Like you might as well be on the bench because you're not helping us. And where he's just going to stand in the corner, he's going to wave, to nobody. He's going to, leave shooters open because he's not willing to contest because he doesn't see the value in contesting late. He's going to stand there as other people rebound around him, but he's not even going to reach for the offensive rebound. Like, it's so crazy to me. Like, when Scotty is good, like when Scotty is right, locked in mentally, if it's him and Brandon Ingram and Sandro Mamukelashvili under the basket, he's getting the rebound and he's going. When he's not good, it's not like he's going to let the Miami Heat get the rebound, but he is definitely going to let Brandon Ingram or Sandro Mamukelashvili get the rebound, and he's just going to jog up the court. And it's just like, I get it. Sometimes you want to save yourself for that big fourth quarter burst. You need to win the game. The win is all that matters. Obviously, Scotty wanted the win. Hasn't won. If I recall correctly, I think Scotty's won one time ever in Miami, if not 0 times, because I know one of the games they won, it was without him in 2022. I think there was another game where they won with him in 2020, but 22, but I could be wrong. That game could have been in Toronto, but if my memory serves me correctly. But nevertheless, like you just want a consistent effort, right? Defensively, you want a little bit closer to what you got in the second half, but for the full game. And offensively, again, some days you're not going to have it. I get it. Some days your jumper feels good. Some days your jumper doesn't feel good. I get it. Today Scotty jumper wasn't feeling super great from 3. Get to the line, get to the glass, force yourself, be a good playmaker. Right? Scotty's going to bring it against Detroit when Raptors finally face them. One can hope. When do the Raptors face the Pistons? Hold on, let me just double check here. So the Raptors face the Pistons. Whoa. What the hell? Oh boy. Okay, so the Raptors have quite a few games against the Pistons. Game 1 is February 11th. Game 2, March 15th. Game 3, March 31st. Those will be solid tune-up games, but I will caution you right now, don't overreact. I don't think the Raptors, have the right personnel to beat the Pistons. That team is hella physical. They're gonna beat the shit out of this team unless they get like a really physical dude. I don't think Jakob Poeltl stands a chance in a matchup against Jalen Duren. I don't think Sandro Mamukelashvili or CMB stand a chance against you know, Isaiah Stewart. I think Asar Thompson and Ron Holland are really good matchups for Scotty Barnes, and I do not think the Raptors have a really great answer for Cade Cunningham unless it is Scotty Barnes guarding him. At which point, I'm very worried about whoever the hell Emmanuel Quickly is guarding. So I would expect us to probably lose that series 1-2 or 3-0. I don't I don't expect us to win or be very good against the Pistons. There's certain teams I just don't trust us to match up well against. It would require amazing shooting luck for us to beat the Pistons. That's just me being honest. That's exactly it. The Pistons are gonna rebound us like crazy. Like, you have faced a lot of teams that do piston-y things. Um, the Pistons are the best at doing piston-y things, if you get my drift. Anyways, no callers today. That is perfectly cool. Today is my mom's 17th death anniversary, which is crazy because that means, like, I am slowly moving towards having spent half my life without her, which is really crazy. Spent a lot of today contemplating, thinking, thinking about her, thinking about life and all that stuff. I'm very, very thankful to this community, obviously. Um, but yeah, it's usually like a really weird time for me, December 15th, like where I usually think a lot about the past, about the future, and all this stuff. And I will share something that came across yesterday. I was thinking like a lot, and something that just came to me that it's not actually that impactful to share your feelings, especially when sharing your feelings is told through a story. That's probably not very effective. That's looping. And I've been doing it a lot, like, throughout most of my life. Like, I've had, like, a story of, like, "Okay, well, this is what happened, and this happened, and then therefore this is what is." And lately, I've been thinking, maybe that's not super helpful, right? Shoot, man. I'm really sorry to hear that. Really sorry to hear that. So, what is helpful? If sharing your feelings and talking about stories, and what I mean by that is a story like, my dad was a drunk, my mom was this, my dad was this, my teachers were this, and they let me slip through the cracks, and therefore I am a drug addict. This is the type of narrative story that maybe repeating over and over and over is just reinforcing really, really bad ideas and thoughts and making you feel terrible. So, what is actually helpful to get you out of a rut? And I think we, to some degree or another, have all been in a spiral, a loop, a rut, a bad thought pattern. So, what is helpful? What is helpful for you? Well, I'll tell you what's helpful for me. And this has been very good for the last couple of days. I will say the last couple of days overall have been excellent. So, number one, name the feeling, name the sensation, name what part of your body it's in, right? So instead of saying my heart is breaking or whatever, or my stomach is knotting, or my back is aching from pain or whatever, just say I feel tightness in my back. Just call it out, right? Just call it out. I feel tightness in my back. Um, I feel a knotting in my stomach, right? I feel a tightness in my chest. I feel a throbbing of my wrist, right? This can be very, very helpful, I think. Naming the emotion, naming the pain, naming where it is. Um, the second thing I've found to be very helpful, um, is manage your intake and everything that you put into your body. Be very, very conscious of it. Um, so I think some people have naturally very good habits when it comes to eating, drinking stuff. Some people will drink coffee at 11, 10 p.m. Spooky Ghostwriter said, Rob, can we call in to ask about life? Of course, man. Of course you can call in to talk about life. This is, as much as it is, this is a basketball podcast. This is absolutely a community podcast for people who, you know. So, um, some people will drink coffee at 11, 10 p.m., of course, because they have an editing assignment to do and need the fuel. But some people will, drink coffee at 5 p.m. when they're intending to be in bed at 10 p.m. And it's just really bad. Maybe you'll have an extra slice of pizza because it's your cheat day or whatever. So I think sometimes it really helps to see the demons in your life, right? This is not me advocating for religion in any way whatsoever. If you are religious, power to you. I'm not advocating for religion. But in Christianity, we do have the 7 deadly sins. And, it's interesting how many times when you pull up that betting app, how many sins you're committing within that app. When you go for the cheat meal, there's probably gluttony, right? When you sit down and watch Netflix for 8 hours and vegetate on the couch, that's sloth. So when you look at these things, try to see the demons in your life, right? Because these apps are kind of hijacking our brains in order to doing things that are objectively bad for us. They're not trying to help us, but you need to help yourself. So whenever I feel like I've hit a moment where things are not going well, I just choose to do one good thing for myself, whatever it is. The third thing that I'll say is don't leave open loops at all. If there's something that bothers you, immediately address it. If there's an email that comes in, try to get it off your desk as soon as possible. I find that a lot of successful people in my life that I've noticed, they close loops quickly. They try to close loops very, very quickly. And a lot of very unsuccessful people, they think, well, I'll wait until I think about something. This is like an open browser in your brain. You know what I mean? Like you want to close tabs. So ask yourself the question, are you someone who often works with 85 tabs wide open? Well, there's probably a really, really, really good reason that your computer is really slow right now. Anyways, we will bring on Professor Pixel at first, who I'm assuming has a lot of basketball, something to talk about with basketball. And then we'll bring on Spooky Ghostwriter. Spooky Ghostwriter, you may have to wait for about, I don't know, a little while here to talk about life. Professor Pixel, what is up, Daryl?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
I can. How are you?
All right, good. I'm good. Well, I could talk about basketball. I could also talk about life. I like to
You're
talk
you're
about
diverse.
a
You're
lot of
diverse and
a lot of
multiverse.
different topics, yes. And if I was like Fred VanVleet in his interview today with Hello and Welcome, I would also say I'm really good at talking about myself because he literally said that. No, it was great. Like when I was watching the interview, my mind went. I can see Rob's eyes rolling right now in his head about a lot of things that he said. I mean, fair. It was. He's a very charismatic guy. He's good. He absolutely is good at talking about himself. So there were no lies detected. But yeah, as far as other things, yeah, if you want if you want to get your blood pressure up a little bit, you can go watch that. But there were some tidbits in there though that were I wouldn't say anything like breaking news, but confirming things that are not really well kept secrets. He did name drop OG and Scotty specifically as players that he has learned to appreciate much more now that he is not playing with them. I found that very interesting. OG specifically, he called out OG. He mentioned OG a couple of times. So
Nice.
the picture is becoming a little bit more clear. But
Yeah.
my favorite one of his quotes, my very favorite one of his quotes was when he said, and this is word for word, I am not a politician. Oh, that's my favorite.
Anyway. Textbook gaslighting, man.
Yeah. No, I commented underneath, like, he literally is, he was born a politician. Oh man. Anyway.
I have not aspired to the seat at the Players Association. because I
Yeah.
am
No,
not a
the way
politician.
he described it was hilarious. He was just kind of like, this is the way he described it. He's like, they came to me and asked me if I'd be interested in becoming the president of the Players Association, and I was just like, yeah, I guess so. Sure, I'll take it. So no, anyway, it was
The little general who
interesting.
could.
Like I can understand why a lot of people that don't have insight into who he is or the way his mind works would think a certain way about him. But if you know what you're listening to, it confirms everything that you've been talking about for years. Specifically, he talked about the money so much about getting the bag, getting paid. He's like, as soon as Houston came with that $41 million, he's like, that's it. He's like, I'm already looking for places in Houston. He was like, I'm not even considering anything from the Raptors. He's like, that's it. The $40 million, it was the money. And he talked about it over and over about the money. So yep, that's what it is. And more power to him.
So it's interesting because if you listen to some media people, you will notice that there's a lot of money talk from them as well. They talk about people paying or not paying, how little money they get for certain things that they do. It seems like money is the thing that greases their wheel, right? Whatever it is, money seems to be like the modus operandi, or that's the swing factor. So it's like, okay, there's this company that's amazing, they do great work, my work is very well circulated among my peers, and then there's this other company and they're paying me 2 times more and my work sucks there and it's just lost in a sea of bullshit, but the money, right? And I think, I don't know about you, but like me personally, like money was a huge, huge part of my childhood growing up. Like, did your parents prioritize money a lot?
My dad, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was it stated as like, this opportunity is better because it pays more money, this opportunity is worse because it doesn't pay enough money, kind of like that?
No, I'm sure my dad is proud of me, but I was
You became a teacher and I
when I
became a
switched
podcaster. I don't think either of our parents are that proud.
Very insightful, because when I switched my major from pre-med to education, my dad was not thrilled.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I was actually telling my girlfriend I won an art contest in grade 2, which was for my pre-K all the way to 4 school. And I had drawn this thing of this guy cleaning up, and it was supposed to be like community impact is the theme. And I won an ice cream party for my whole class. And I, I went home and I told my mom I'm going to be an artist. And she laughed and she laughed and she laughed and laughed. And 8 years later, I became an artist. But my point, or like 10 years later, I became an artist. But my point is, it was never realistically presented to me as this is an option in life. Like, you cannot become an artist. Like, what are you like, a hobo? Like, what are you gonna do? And I think the lack of money gave me this like window of like, okay, well, not having money makes your life miserable. And it's sort of like what I was talking about in the members only live about inversion, kind of like, how can you like, how do you make a good life? It's like, I don't know, let's think about what a bad life is. And so it's very interesting that even in the process of inversion, you can invert incorrectly. So for instance, what if I had inverted and said a lack of money made my parents' life poor, and so I will do everything in my power to make sure that I do not have a lack of money? That's actually not the inversion that I did. In fact,
But
what I
that's
did
very
was,
normal. That's what most people would do.
that's 2D thinking. But thankfully, we live in a 3D world. And so I decided to do some 3D thinking when I was younger. And I said, my parents' consistent worrying about and conversing about, debating about, arguing about, quibbling over money has made their lives into hell. They talk about it all the time. They don't have enough of it. They spend too much of it. They can't agree on how they spend it. One doesn't make enough. One can't hold a job enough. One has to hold 3 jobs. There's always this conversation around money. It's always a money thing. So what I did was I said, I'm going to grow up in a way that money is not what I orient my life through. I'm never going to become a person whose decisions are going to be money first. And that was the inversion. It was not, let me grow up with let me grow up with more, or let me have like the highest paying job. It was more like, let me live a life where money is not going to be the be all end all of my decision making. And so instead, I'm going to chase something else, which is peace, because my parents did not have peace. They could not create peace for me as a child. And so I'm going to create peace for myself so I can one day create it for my children and create it for my family. And in order to do that, I need to make sure that money is not the central theme, because it seems that quibbling over chasing money, thinking about money all the time has created a lot of lack of peace. So that's the inversion.
I think I processed that in a very similar way. I wanted to get away from the pressure of, not just the pressure on me, but just like the pressure of everybody, society, the pressure of money, this, money, that. And I wanted to get away from it. So I moved halfway around the world. And life has been good here. And it's funny what people say, like, when you put your priorities in the right place, the good things come. If you don't worry about it, they'll come anyway. And like, I'm far from rich, but I'm doing all right. I'm surviving. I have had some successes, and it feels nice. And if I had been constantly worried and stressed out about money all the time, about finances, it would have put so much strain on my relationships. It would have possibly ended my marriage. I mean, there was a time when my wife and I, we were literally filling up water jugs at work because we couldn't afford to buy water. You can't drink the tap water here, by the way.
I know.
Heavy metals.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like we've been there, so it's like,
I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Don't think too much.
Yeah.
Just answer it. Do you like your job?
I love it.
Do you love your wife?
I love her.
Do you love your kids?
I love them.
Do you like where you live?
I do. I love it.
You sound really rich to me, dude.
Exactly.
You sound very rich to me. You sound like the richest man in the world to me. So, and that's the thing, man. It's like, people don't get it, and people think you're a hippie if you say it any other way. But the reality is, having a really big bank balance, or having a nice car, or having like the hot supermodel, but like she doesn't create peace for you. The car is like a rental because you got to keep up images. The friends are not really your friends. They're just waiting for a downfall. I'm not trying to paint some sort of Hollywood, cliche here, but this is the reality. The cliche comes from somewhere. It's the fucking reality. I listened to a lot of Bob Marley growing up. Probably tell. So yeah, like a lot of I remember there was this person who was talking to him about like how his albums were doing and how he's so rich now. And then he just like seems so bewildered by the question, and he's just like, possessions make you rich? Like, I didn't know that. I thought values make you rich, and that's what it is. A person who is able to hold their values is the richest person in the world. A person who is able to, find joy in life, find gratitude in life, that is the richest person in the world. AG saying money is a vehicle to freedom.
No, choices. Choices
so.
are the vehicle to freedom. Choices are the vehicle to freedom. I don't agree
Correct.
at all. Money enslaves more people than it frees.
Absolutely. The vast majority of people who are stuck at a job that they hate have simply gotten used to a lifestyle they cannot abandon, right? They have a mortgage, they have car payments, they have kids in private school, because they have consistently adjusted their lifestyle to their income. And now whoever is providing that income, be it, the country in which, the economy is, or the company that is employing you, they have you by the balls. You're not leaving that company, because you can't lose that, because you don't have enough saved up. Like, to me, it's just like, I could survive. Like, if I worked at Tim Hortons, I could survive very comfortably for the rest of my life. I'm perfectly fine. You know, I saved up a lot when I was younger. I don't spend a lot. Can't remember the last time I bought something. I think it was a pair of shorts like 8 months ago. I think that was my last purchase. Apart from groceries, like I just don't buy a lot of stuff. People think that I'm like homeless or something because I've worn the same hat and the same hoodie for like 5 straight years. I'm just like, I like the hat, I like the hoodie. What do you want from me? You know, the other day, after a few comments of like, do you have another hat? I actually contemplated buying another hat, but then I realized it was the exact same hat. I went to Winners and it was the same hat. It was the same hat. It was $17, and I'm like, I'm thinking of buying another hat. And my girlfriend's like, which one do you like? And I tried on like 8 of them. I'm like, I don't like any of these. Then I tried this one on. I'm like, I like this one. She's like, that's the one you already have. I'm like, I know. That's the hat that I like, man. So I don't know. That's just a simple life. Yeah. I'm gonna bring
You really
Spooky
should be
Ghost Rider
sponsored by Puma.
on. I really should be. And Red Salute, Spooky Ghost Rider, what's up, man? I didn't want to keep you waiting any longer. I apologize.
Not a problem.
You said you wanted to talk about life.
Mm-hmm. How should I say this?
This isn't going to be like one of those like I have a problem with immigrants and I don't know where else to talk about it kind of thing. No, okay, cool. Yeah.
It's
you never know, man. You never know.
I'm an immigrant. Chinese.
Okay, well then this would be okay. Well then this would be a good time to tell you I have a problem with immigrants. I don't know where else to talk about it.
Okay.
I'm joking. I'm joking. Please don't cancel me. I'm kidding.
I remember you standing up for the Chinese lady during COVID. I remember that story. That.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. This is call-in number 3 for me, I'd like to say, but
that sounds about right.
My 2 parts to my questions about life. So first half, I had a very difficult relationship with my maternal grandmother. She was, how should I say this? Someone who was very opinionated about health, and that made her very loud, very shouty, very in your face for someone who was maybe like 5'4". And I'm not sure if this is the right place to say this, but 3 months ago she had a stroke.
Damn, I'm sorry to hear that.
My mother, she pulled out a section, I believe it's 49.2 out of the Employment Standards Act. I wrote it because my mother's English is not great. She's been caring for her for the last 2-3 months, and I'm supposed to pick her up from the airport around Christmas. So essentially my first question is like how would you deal with someone whose relationship you've had considerable difficulties with? Because I haven't seen her in person since 2015. First it was graduating high school, and then it was...
Is your second question tied to the first question in any notable way?
Unrelated.
Completely unrelated. Okay, cool. Okay, so it's not a one-for-one comparison, but I also had a very, very difficult relationship with my mom's sisters, both of them. They blame me for pretty much everything, like everything. And they disguise sometimes their criticism as love. And I, as a child, learned that because adults in my life did not see my needs as valid at all, no matter what concern I had, it wasn't valid. It was like, Robert, shut up. Like, you don't have a right to complain about this. You should be happy with this. I kind of learned to see myself as like a second-class citizen in my own life. And it wasn't until much later, especially in therapy around 2019, that I uncovered that actually this has been like bad programming for me. It's like programming by the adults around me to condition me to believe that I don't deserve any basic rights, anything, because it kind of keeps you trapped. So I viewed my other aunt, and my stepfather as like very big pushers of these ideologies, and a lot of pushers of abuse, frankly. And so around 2020, my uncle passed away, and that was my mom's side. My uncle and his wife was my mom's sister. So I decided to call her. And I figured it had been about 15 years almost at that point since I'd last spoken to her. And we'd had a very difficult conversation the last time we spoke, or 13 years since we'd last spoke. So I was like, surely enough time has passed that we can actually have a conversation now. And I called her, and she answered the phone very excited. So I was like, great. I was like, hey. And she's like, who is this? And I was like, oh, she's excited because she doesn't know who the fuck this is, because apparently caller ID is not showing up. And then I said, it's Robert. And she's like, Robert who? And then I was like, it's me. And the minute she figured out who it was, she hung up on me. And that was heartbreaking. And then I had a chance to meet my mom's other aunt. My mom's other sister. And I got to meet her in person because she had messaged me and she said, hey, I'm in Toronto. I don't know, given my age, if I'm ever going to come back, would you be open to meeting up? And I'm like, of course, I'd be happy to meet up with you. And then I met up with her, and I didn't bring up anything from the past. And I was perfectly normal. And people were just looking at me like, at some point he's going to say something about the abuse. And I never did. So I say that to say that forgiveness is not for them. It's for you. If they had known better, they would have done better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are trying to do the right thing. I think viewing life from that perspective, that even the person who neglected you, even the person who chastised you, criticized you, abused you, whatever your relationship is with your grandmother, you don't have to get into details, whatever the contentious points of your relationship were, to some extent, she probably viewed it as love. That doesn't mean that you have to internalize it as love, but that does mean that you have to accept that whatever her treatment of you was a reflection of how she likely treated herself, number one, right? And number two, how she likely felt the best way was to treat you.
Right.
So I think that at some point you need to untangle the wires of like, how I was treated is not how I necessarily should have been treated, but the person who was treating me the way they treated me probably treated me that way because they thought it was the right thing to do. There are parents out there that, beat their children for getting D's and C's, right? There are parents out there who punish their children for peeing in the car. Then there are parents who hug their children after they pee in the car, or there are parents who hug their children after a C and get them a tutor. One parent believes that this is the right way. The other parent believes this is the right way. It's unfortunate for the child who grows up with the parent who deals with the problems the wrong way, or the grandparent or the aunt or the uncle who deals with things the wrong way. They probably have a long path in therapy to unpack all of this stuff. You know what I mean? So my thought process here would be just to forgive and try to move forward with acceptance would be my thought. Does that help at all?
It does, and I guess
Okay,
it
good.
helps me contextualize.
Yeah. Daryl, do you have any
life.
thoughts on that?
Yeah. I just have a question for you.
Spooky
Do
Ghost
you
Rider.
want to see her? Do you want to see her? Like, are you happy to go pick her up at the airport? Is any part of you happy to see her?
My mom is the one coming back from the airport. Not my grandmother.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right. But I mean, you said you're gonna see your grandmother again for the first time since 2015, right? Did I hear that correct?
If I was to go back.
So that's okay. So do you think that there is any value for yourself in going back and seeing her?
Next
Or
to
is
none.
that bridge burned? Okay. Do you think that there would be any value between yours and your mother's relationship if you go back and see your grandmother?
My relationship with my mother is in certain ways more akin to, how should I say this, roommates almost.
Okay.
Just parenting was, there was never a statement of, how should I say this, affection did not come easily or at all, I think. I think the long-term aspect of that is I'll almost certainly never have children. Like, I might adopt. I'm 26, I don't know, but
Here's a question
just,
for you, and I like that Daryl asked the question because I just launched into a life story, which I think is probably the wrong approach to this. I like that he asked the question. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever tried to give your mom a hug?
she was very surprised. She's like, "Why are you doing this?"
Okay. Did you push through it? You just say like because I wanted to hug my mom?
I did. And then we forgot about it, and the life went on, I guess.
Well,
we're sort of a family where I guess affection is we're a family that's sort of material in a sense. This is my parents didn't speak that much of their childhood, but there is one story of a difficult time in the late 70s. So prior to either it was prior to the market reforms that started in the 1980s or in the very early years of that, and the family ran calculations of their spending, and they're like, okay, we're like a couple of $100 short. The cat has to go. And the uncomfortable part of the story is my maternal grandfather took the cat out to work with him onto a streetcar and then let it out near his workplace. The cat came back that night. He took it out a second day, and the second night it did not come back. So certainly this is a family that, for lack of a better word, could be certainly very cold if the situation demanded it.
Right.
But
this was cold is a interpretation, and what you may call cold, another person might call very practical.
Yes.
No, that's cold. That's cold.
Again, subjective, right? Like I think some people are products very often of the environment in which they grew up. My grandparents grew up in post World War II Italy, and post World War II Serbia, and like for me, having to download all of their life hacks of in case the world comes to an end and the Nazis come back, like okay, come on, like this is a lot of trauma that they have endured. The older I become, the more I accept the trauma of my parents and my grandparents, because they all had uniquely difficult lives, and the fact that they lived difficult lives means that my life was uniquely privileged, relatively speaking, so I'm sure that every generation in your family is attempting to make the next generation's pathway forward a little bit easier.
Well,
attempting
it might
to
all end with me,
perhaps.
Have you ever considered breaking the mold in your family, taking the initiative and showing affection?
I mean, yes, but it's usually seen as this very alien thing, because that's not. I'm an only child. There is no other siblings. Never had a pet because they prioritize money.
Mm.
I went to renew a yearly investment for my mother a month back, and it was a significant amount. I won't say how much, but it was very significant. And I was thinking, geez, what, like, is there something we could have done with this while I was growing up? Because I think the last birthday present I got was $20.
Hmm.
And they just stopped giving me presents after that.
Are you an only child?
Yep.
Hmm.
One child policy. Didn't get repealed until I was 15, 16.
What's
Gotcha.
your family's background, like ethnicity?
Chinese.
Chinese.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he mentioned that earlier.
Sorry, I missed it.
Mainland. Not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I am also uniquely frugal. Okay, so I feel like I'm maybe a little bit more like your parents, not to the point where I wouldn't feed my cat and leave my cat on a streetcar, but certainly, you know, I've had to make some really difficult choices when it came to, you know, whether or not we were going to have Christmas gifts. Like my girlfriend would be the first person to tell you, I consider an $80 meal a really expensive restaurant. And that's not a really expensive restaurant, obviously. In the light of COVID and new prices, $80 is a pretty standard meal for two people. And I'm just like, nah, we need to find a way to get $50 meals. You know what I mean? So to the point where her birthday, we went to a restaurant and we spent $55 for the two of us, and I ate less. So it's like, am I in a position right now where I need to be squeezing dollars and cents to this extent? No, I'm not. At all. I'm not, you know. And then at times in my life I've been very, very generous, but at times of my life I've squeezed very tightly because I think your parents probably have a pretty paranoid worldview.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's fair. And are probably always disaster planning and catastrophizing on all the ways that the world could become like really, really bad. And I think for people who catastrophize a lot, that's the logical choice. That having, you know, like, I think some people believe that you need to have like 6 months of income saved up, right? And that's what they need to feel comfortable. Some people, like myself, need to have like 5 years of income saved up to feel safe, because you just never know what could happen. Oh my God, some health expense could come up. This could come up. I could not work. I could break my leg. I could, you know, have cancer. Like there's so many things that can happen. And I think for people for whom life was very uncertain, and I cannot speak very much to growing up in China because I've literally never been to China, but I'm sure like your parents, their upbringing was very different than your upbringing here.
Yes,
in terms of like
absolutely.
political stability, economic availability of like stuff. And so, yeah, in a lot of ways, you know, you're seeing the broader spectrum because you've seen how they've grown up, and you've also seen how you've grown up. But the anchoring of them growing up and surviving what they went through means they probably think that their way is right.
Right.
Because their way got them to this point. And you didn't die and they didn't die, and so therefore we are right. My view on this is you're 26 now, so your brain has officially stopped developing. It's all downhill from here, by the way, right? So 25, your brain peaks, and then from there it is maintenance. So now that your prefrontal cortex is completely developed, I think you are at a place as an adult, as a full-fledged adult. I really don't consider people under 25 to be like full-fledged adults. To me, like, yeah, I understand. Sometimes we consider 18-year-olds adults. Go talk to an 18-year-old. They're not adults. 25-year-olds are adults. So you have just hit the threshold of adult. And I believe as an adult, you are now in a position where you are closer to 40, presumably, than your parents are. Right?
Yeah.
And 40 is like the peak for like success, business. A lot of people like peak around 40. So I would say at this point, you're much closer to being the family head than they are. So at this point, it's just a passing of the baton from them to you. And I think in that moment, there can be some healing and hopefully some perspective sharing. And I think that don't hammer it too much, because they're still going to be your parents and they're still probably going to have a really hard time understanding where you're coming from on all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But don't stop trying to have honest conversations.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Like I would continue to try and schedule time to have honest conversations. Don't spring them on them. Maybe ask your parents, you know them better. When are you willing to have a conversation about this? Are you willing to have this is what I want to discuss. Would you be willing to have a conversation about this? And
Right.
even if at the end of the conversation, you're still like 25 miles apart in terms of your understanding of what you went through and what they went through and whatever, hopefully
Right.
it's better than 26. And over some period of time, you can bridge the divide. But I think the most important thing to realize here is you're not going to change anyone's mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So like, yeah, like I think I would try to find peace in that, try to find acceptance and understanding. And again, just understand, if they knew better, they would have done better. That's not a reason to forgive them for every wrong thing they ever did. Important. It's not a reason to normalize what they did, whatever they did. It's just a reason to move past what they did, as this does not define my whole life, you know? Yeah. Anyways, Red Salute, man, what's up?
Your OKC show was probably my favorite stream of yours ever. That was awesome stuff, dude.
Is this a members live or no?
This one? No, this is a post game, but the OKC one you did.
No, I know this is not a members live.
Yeah, sorry.
No, was the OKC one a members live?
Let me quickly check your channel. I think it might have been. No, it wasn't. I don't think it was, because your members you just did the other day. The OKC one was let's see, live. No. It got 2K views. Yeah, it was a public one. Yeah. It wasn't
cool.
Yeah.
What did you like about it?
Well, you pretty much broke down what OKC does, and what we have been doing is not been doing what they've been doing, if that makes any sense. And my God, we've got a lot of work to do, but like in terms of making the big deals, but there's not that much player movement we really have to do if you think about it, because obviously I think RJ and IQ have got to go first, because that backcourt, well, if we go into the playoffs with this backcourt, we're going to get destroyed. So we've got to fix our backcourt. And then unfortunately, I really wanted Grady to work out in Toronto, but I don't think it's going to happen here, man. I just don't see it happening. Like I was really impressed, not only with his progress this season defensively and the improvements he's making, and even especially tonight, he made some big plays in the fourth, but he's probably going to have to go Jamison Battle. I didn't realize that Jamison Battle is a real problem on defense. I thought he was kind of below average, but no, you've been watching the tape. So yeah, unfortunately, Jamison's got to go. And then maybe next year, like, I don't know if we sign and trade Sandro. Maybe we can get away with Sandro for a while, NBI.
You're not going to have Sandro next year, because he's got a player option on a minimum contract, and he is almost definitely going to be a free agent. So
yeah,
if you're going to get him, it's going to be at a significant pay hike from where it is right now. And I'm not saying significant as in like 20 million, but you're going to pay him at least 6. Given that you paid Kem Birch 6, like 7 years ago, 6 years ago, you're going to pay Sandro at least 6 or 7 based on the play that he's had. And given this, the Raptors is probably going to be closer to 8 or 10, which means the money that was previously potentially there for RJ and Ochai is now even more shrunken.
Yeah.
So.
I can't, like OKC, they had Giddey for a while, and they did up until like this last year, prior to last season when they won it all, 68 games. Like they still had a few little, some weaknesses or, weaker defenders on their team. So if we have to, like, I would rather move IQ before we move RJ, just because I'm been really impressed with RJ's improvement, his development, and how much work he put in the summer. And I know IQ is a gym rat as well, but like you, I really, really want to get Jalen Suggs so badly on this team. And if it can happen, we've got to go for it, man. Get Jalen Suggs for sure. But I'm kind of hoping you know, like if we don't move all of them right away, and we get to we become OKC East by eventually, you know, moving these guys, not sporadically, but, you know, realistically, I don't think we can, you know, Bobby can snap his fingers, make a bunch of deals all at once, and boom, we've got a roster ready to go, OKC East. But I'm just kind of hoping we can hold on to RJ for a little while, because I hate to say it, man, but sympathy for Shannon. You know, I can kind of see where he's coming from with some of his arguments, because RJ has really improved, but again, it's the off-ball defense, and he's always getting caught ball watching. But I don't know, maybe I'm just a little impatient, but I'm just kind of curious to see what kind of moves we're going to make first this year, and what domino or what proverbial domino is going to fall first, because there's a lot of tantalizing players out there, man, that we could add to this team and make this team into something truly special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, it's like the RJ thing is the contract, right?
Yeah.
So if you can get him down to a reasonable contract, like 24, 22 million, whatever, that's perfectly fine. But that's not where his value is right now, and probably not where he sees his value with the Raptors. And so there's going to be a significant, you know, up on the payment, and then you're going to end up signing him for $30+ million, and then have another contract on your books that's going to be a little hard to move, because again, let's be honest, like in a league where Norman Powell is trying to get 25 million, RJ Barrett at 30 million is tough. It's a tough sell unless he gets a lot better. And I know that people are seduced by like 20 points per game or whatever. I promise you, he is not worth $30 million. No, so it's just, it's a weird archetype of player that teams simply do not pay anymore. Yeah. Okay. Like the guys like Karis LeVert, you know, guys like that, they just don't get paid that kind of money anymore. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you got to be a specialist on some level, or you got to be a star, or you got to be, you know, a plug and play. Like if you look at the New York Knicks, ironically, the team that traded him, they have replaced him with several 3-and-D type of wings that they are paying currently they're paying 2 of them less than him, you know, in Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges, although Mikal Bridges' extension kicks in very soon. But that's kind of the point, right? Like the Josh Hart, you know, the rebounding guard who can hit threes now, versus, you know, Mikal Bridges, the do-it-all utility forward who can defend, versus OG Anunoby, the 3-and-D. This is the archetype of player who is getting paid at that wing position that are not stars. Yeah. Beyond that is the J-Dubs, you know, who are like complementary stars. And then beyond that is like the 3-and-D role player stopper types. But again, like when you look at guys who are making 30 million, you're looking at Trey Murphy's own. Trey Murphy, Keegan Murray. And to me, those are like lights out shooters. Yeah. Those are lights out shooters. And so, you know, RJ Barrett is very much in the Quentin Grimes conversation in terms of like talent. But because of his pedigree and because of his high school hype, people like Shannon see him as something much greater than that. And for sure, it's just a role utility thing, because I guarantee if Quentin Grimes is on Toronto, he's a better defender. He's able to do a lot of the stuff that RJ is able to do. You are able to replicate it. It's just you're not able to replicate it with bargain basement options like Ochai Agbaji. Yeah. But just because Ochai Agbaji cannot replace RJ Barrett doesn't mean Quentin Grimes can't replace RJ Barrett, that Malik Beasley couldn't replace RJ Barrett, that like Moses Moody couldn't replace RJ Barrett. There's a lot of players in this league who can replicate some of his value. And how god-awful we have looked offensively, I do not think comes down to just, he's missing. It is the unwillingness of certain players on this team to make passes, wide open passes, unwillingness of certain players to flash open to situations. And, you know, it's a cart and horse argument. Is Ochai Agbaji unwilling to cut because he knows that Quickly's not going to find him? Or is Quickly unwilling to pass because Ochai Agbaji is not cutting? Like, I don't know which of the two it is, but what I do know is the offense is a lot smoother when RJ is on the court. Yeah. Things move, circulate. Like the blood is circulating a lot better. The ball circulates a lot better when he's on the court. And I think that is largely because he gets the ball
Yeah.
in good places.
Yeah, I can never see him becoming a decent spot up shooter. But
He's become an okay spot up shooter. The issue is the pull up jump shooting. It's just not there, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at a guy like Quentin Grimes, who again is like not even making $10 million, if I'm not mistaken, right now, or a guy like Moses Moody, at least there is some pull up jump shooting potential there.
Yeah. Sorry,
right?
yeah, I meant because it seems like the off ball is brutal off ball defense. Like that seems like stuff that is pretty easy that you could be fixed. He just needs to.
It's not easy.
He needs to it's his attention span. It seems like to me.
I don't think it's that easy to fix
Yeah.
off ball defense. I personally don't know if it's easier to fix off ball or on ball, but honestly, like the head on the swivel, awareness, like you need to be a good off ball defender at minimum to not be a bad team defender. Like there needs to be, because if you're a bad on ball defender, like Grady is a bad on ball defender. He's terrible, actually. So very often he will play to his the defender's left hip and then give up like a wide open blow by. If he can offer even a second of resistance on that drive, i.e. one bump, one chest bump, one something, that is enough for the next closest defender to come and help. Right?
Right.
But if he doesn't even get there, then there's no helping the helper. There's no helping the recovery. There's nothing. So if it's one thing if Scotty Barnes spots a guy above the break, closes out to him, pushes him off the line, that guy goes downhill. In that amount of time that Scotty has spent closing out to his man, pushing him off the line, now Quickly is able to come in, help him, and then Scotty is able to rotate to Quickly's man, and then the whole thing resets. But if Scotty doesn't make the initial rotation, that's just an open shot.
Yeah.
So that's the point. It doesn't matter what RJ does if he's there. It's how often are you actually there? How often do you actually run around a screen and not give up? So I think if you isolate individual play-by-play on RJ defense, you'll find a pretty competitive on-ball defender. He does a good job, chest bumping his guy. He does a good job being physical. Sometimes he even strips the ball away. But it's how often are you actually where you're supposed to be? And that's not just when your man gets the ball. It's when somebody else gets the ball. How well are you able to dig down on the basketball when, let's just say, for instance, the matchup is Miles Bridges against Emmanuel Quickly in the post, right? It's a cross match in transition. Quickly is obviously a terrible matchup for a bruiser like Bridges. And so RJ is probably 8 feet away and Bridges starts going into his move. Now, RJ has his man, Brandon Miller, and he's cheating off the corner to get to him, right? How successfully are you able to close the gap between the help on the dig and then the recovery back to the shooter if that if the offensive player eventually gives it up? With RJ, the help is not necessarily the greatest, because when he will dig down, he will either foul or he doesn't present enough of a threat, and he doesn't close the recovery pass. He doesn't like some players help very well. Like CMB is a great help defender. I think OG is a great help defender. Scotty's a great help defender. See, when they come at you, they help hard. They got their hands up. They're making the pass to the corner difficult. So even if I make the pass difficult, the guy in the corner is going to have a much harder time catching the ball clean, and that'll give me enough time if the guy does throw the pass that I can then get back and recover onto him before he gets into a shot motion. What RJ is going to do is he is going to recover. He's going to double very soft. He's going to dig into the basketball, but he's not going to dig well. And then past the corner to Brandon Miller is going to go clean. And at that point, he's going to recover slowly, and the contest is going to be late. And it's going to be either a wide open three for Miller, or he's going to push him off the line, totally out of control, never get back into the play, and just stand there as Miller goes into help and then finds a wide open shooter at the top, which is going to be Colin Sexton. Like, I see this entire play roll out in my mind, and it's just like, it's every time with RJ Barrett. This situation is going to come back and back and back and back and bite you in the ass. Today, I talked about like a really, really, really great sequence of basketball that the Raptors played on the defensive end, right? And it was basically, it was help the helper, help the helper, help the helper, like 14 times. So, do you remember that play? Were you watching earlier?
I might have missed it.
Okay, let me just pull it up. Let me show you exactly the play and where RJ would be in this situation. Okay, so I said this is great defense. Watch this. So, possession number 1. This is CMB. That's the first.
Yeah. I saw
Okay,
this.
RJ can do this. This RJ can do. What
Yeah.
CMB is doing here, relatively speaking, RJ can do. He can't do it as well as CMB because he doesn't have necessarily the long arms, and he's not nearly as good at poking the ball away as CMB is. He's not as good a shot blocker. But here, digging down on the basketball, RJ could have done something like this.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Yep.
the recovery, Jamal Shed, perfect recovery, gets into, now here, CMB. CMB right now has 2 jobs, right? What are his 2 jobs? Number 1, assist Jamal Shed. Number 2, track Jaime Jaquez.
Yep.
Right?
Big time. Sorry to interrupt. This is where RJ just loses it completely.
RJ will forget about Jaime Jaquez in the corner completely.
Yep.
CMB won't. CMB is aware that Jaime Jaquez is still his man. Now CMB is split between 2 defenders. Split between 2 offensive players because Ingram has let his man get behind. And so now CMB is splitting the difference between 2 defenders. Now here, this is a wide open pass. If Ingram is not allowed, Bam could have passed this, but CMB is tracking the probability of passes here. The pass to Wiggins is not made, not because Bam is such a terrible passer. It's largely because CMB is there to pick this pass away, and Bam knows it. So you can see, like, look at those long arms, right? So he is now, right now, he's thinking box out, but he's also thinking corner recovery. And you can see right here, he knows Jaquez is in the corner. And boom, the minute quickly recovers, he is immediately darting to the next rotation. And when Shed recovers, he is now darting to the next rotation. So if this is RJ, number 1, this can happen potentially, but it won't be as easy because Jaime Jaquez would just go over him. This entire play does not happen if RJ Barrett is in the same spot as CMB. Because number 1, he is like, that pass goes right because RJ probably is a foot over on Jaquez, or he's overcommitted to Bam rolling or Wiggins rolling, which will leave a wide open. CMB's ability to split the difference perfectly here with his lateral quickness and awareness and, pesky and his ability to make 1, 2, 3 rotations. Yeah. This is exactly what RJ Barrett will never do. So
I couldn't agree more. His rotations are awful. I just think the one thing that could be fixed is his awareness. For example, there with Jaime Jaquez, I think Darko, like, they could probably improve his awareness, but I think everything else, he's probably a lost cause, unfortunately. Like maybe I don't know if he would ever accept a bench role, but I did want to move on from RJ, and I wanted to Penstradamus, if you could put on your proverbial thinking cap. Well, you've already got it, your trademark Puma, but what would you do if you're in Bobby Webster's shoes? I think that's something a lot of your audience, we would love to hear. What would you do if you're in Bobby Webster's shoes right now, and all the moves you'd make maybe this season and maybe next season?
Pull up the trade machine and give you 2 moves right away. These are the 2 moves that I would make tomorrow, if possible. Move number 1, shocking to absolutely no one, I make an immediate trade for Davion Sharp. Why? Because I do not believe that it is worth coughing up the next 8 back-to-backs because Jakob Poeltl cannot play. And I do not believe that injuring, Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes by playing them out of position and having them bang with bigs is worth it. So I am willing to, part with Ochai Agbaji in multiple seconds to get this done. I have no problem with it. And frankly, I give a shit less. So that's move number 1. And obviously I am giving up the LA pick and I'm giving up a 20-30 second round pick. So that is move number 1, and that gets done immediately. Now, move number 2.
Quick question, if I may.
Mhm.
How realistically, how can I articulate this? How close to reality do you think this really is? Because Ochai's value has kind of been in the gutter, but he has been playing significantly better of late. It's like he is a competent defender. I'm not going to say he's an elite defender. No way. But Ochai he has a reputation as a good defender.
Well, they signed him to a 2-year deal. They signed Davion Sharp to a 2-year deal. That does not exactly speak like long-term confidence. Like when you talk about Nick Claxton, they signed him to a 4-year, $100 million deal. That's what speaks confidence. So I don't think that they have a ton of confidence in getting 2 second-round picks. Should not be completely sneezed at, especially for a team that is in a rebuild right now.
Yeah.
For a team that is looking to bottom out, Davion Sharp is not on your timeline because he's 26 years old or 25 years old, 24 years old. He helps you win games, basically. Davion Sharp is not a negative player. He's a positive player at this point. And, right now they've also got Danny Wolf emerging, and Danny Wolf's look good. So that's another big. Added Nick Claxton, Noah Clowney. You got plenty of power forwards / centers who need minutes. And I think clearing the way for Danny Wolf to get some minutes could expand, opportunities here. That being said, it's not like Ochai Agbaji is like some wonderful asset. So I understand if some people feel like it would take Grady Dick. But if it takes Grady Dick, then there's no picks going back. And I don't like the value exchange there because, again, like just because we're desperate for a center doesn't mean that Davion Sharp is suddenly worth Grady Dick or a first-round pick.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's my first move. If it takes another second-round pick, I'm for it. I really don't care. I'm not that invested in seconds as a general philosophy. And the second move that I would make is with the Pelicans, and that would be for Herb Jones. So yeah, I don't think Herb's having like the greatest season ever, and he's 27 years old at this point, so he is definitely in his prime, and
his value's got to be down a bit.
Yeah. So I mean, this move is a little bit trickier because obviously if you're trading for Herb Jones, he's going to start, and he has to start, and that means RJ Barrett's got to go the other way, and this is probably going to have to be a three-team deal, because if it's Herb and RJ, then I just really don't see how the Raptors make the salaries work. So here it's probably going to be Herb, RJ, and then Ochai's already off the team, so it's got to be like Grady. No. Okay, so let's see. Is there another player on this team that probably needs to go somewhere else? Possibly Sadiq Bey, but I mean, like, they got to get rid of salary because they're not giving up enough salary here. So it's like it's got to be Jeremiah Fears ain't going nowhere. Kevon Looney. Okay, so something of the sort. So reuniting RJ and Zion in New Orleans. Sadiq Bey, Kevon Looney, Herb Jones, and then getting a third team involved. Where is the third team? What do add team 3. Who would be the third team in this deal? The Hawks, potentially. What would the Pelicans want back? Because the Pelicans would be getting RJ Barrett. And then what would be the team? Indiana, no. Nets, no. Bulls, no. Bucks, no. Okay, let's try to see if this could work. Okay, so is there a way that we can get Goga Batadze to the Raptors and Herb Jones and then just add a bunch of picks to make it work? Okay. So we get Goga, they get Sadiq, they get Kevon.
That's a steal.
I mean, we're adding a ton of picks. Don't worry.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to add it.
Right
Okay,
sorry, that looks like the steal of the century right now without the picks.
It is. Okay, So Grady goes to the Magic. We get Jet, Goga, Herb. They get Grady, Sadiq, Kavan. The Pelicans get RJ Barrett. So far, I feel now Toronto must parse out, I think, at least a second round pick to the Magic and a lottery protected 2031 to the Pelicans. And I think this deal pretty much makes sense. It says it fails because, hold on. The Magic are unable to complete the trade since they are now over the app. They are only able to take back 100% of the salary they're sending out. Okay, cut $5 million from the Magic's incoming to make the value work. Okay, so the Magic basically need to give away another player in this deal. Okay, so let's see. Do they have another $5 million player they can give away? Tyus Jones is garbage. Just go to the Raptors. Does this make sense? Okay. Toronto would have 16 players. Herb Jones can't be traded until January 14th. Otherwise, it all works. Okay. So in this deal, the Raptors get Jet Howard. Okay, wait. Move Jet Howard to the Pelicans. See if that works. Does this work? We really don't. Can we move Jet Howard to the Pelicans? Can we move Tyus Jones to the Pelicans? Does this work? Let's try this trade. Herb Jones, Pelicans crossing the tax apron. Please remove $6 million. So let's see if the Pelicans can give one more player back to the Raptors for $6 million. Could we get Jordan Hawkins?
Ooh. Nice. I really hope Bobby Webster watches your subs you and watches your streams.
He watches Hello and Welcome.
What a waste of time. He should be watching you. I hope he does. I think he does.
Okay. So remove $6.8 million of incoming from the Pelicans. 6.8. So that would be Tyus Jones. So the Pelicans get Jet Howard, RJ Barrett. The Raptors get Tyus Jones, Jordan Hawkins, Goga Bitadze, and Herb Jones. And the Magic get Grady Dick, Sadiq Bey, and Kevon Looney. I really like Kevon Looney for us, but wait a second. Is there a way for us to get Kevon and for them to get Tyus? You can't send Tyus back to the Magic because he's coming from the Magic. Yeah. No. So, I mean, yeah, roughly, I think this deal pretty much works. And yeah, it works. Yeah. So the Raptors send a first round pick plus a second round pick and Grady and RJ and get back Herb Jones, Goga Bitadze, Tyus Jones, and Jordan Hawkins.
Wow.
I would do this deal in a heartbeat.
Yeah. What happens to Jakob now? Where does he go? And what could we get for him?
I don't think Jakob goes anywhere. I think Jakob is perfectly fine. And, if you can rehab his value and get away from the back issues, then, maybe that's great. So, yeah. So with a roster after this deal, you would result with a roster of Davion Sharp, Goga Bitadze. Your rotation would be, you lose RJ Barrett, Ochai Agbaji, and Grady Dick. But now you have Jacoby Walter, you have Herb Jones. Tyus Jones is pretty much a third string point guard on an expiring contract that can step in when Quickly is having his, issues. Goga is presumably a backup. You play supersize now. You have Goga and Davion Sharp as backup bigs to Jakob Poeltl. So in games where you've pretty much stocked up, all of your and your starting lineup would be in this situation. Your starting lineup would be Manuel Quickly, Herb Jones, Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, and Jakob Poeltl. So Herb just steps in for RJ and solidifies your defense and takes you to the next level. And then your backups, that's where you really get value, which is like you get Jordan Hawkins, Jamal Shad, Goga Batadze, Dayron Sharp. You just get a much deeper, I think you get a lot
CMB.
deeper on your bench. CMB. Yeah, you go like 11, 12 deep now. And I think you have a much better chance defensively now with this lineup. I think.
Yeah.
Jordan is not a great defender, but he is a slightly better defender than Grady. Like it's close. Goga is a reasonably good defender, and Herb is an amazing defender. So yeah, your defense gets good. You don't give up a single defensive stopper. Ochai is the closest thing to a good defender you're giving up in all these trades. So
Nice.
yeah. So that's what I would do. Anyways, any final thoughts? Red Salute?
I don't think so, man. That was really entertaining. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right. Thanks, man. Peace. Spooky Ghost Rider, any final thoughts, man?
Hi. Just one more question. We got through the first one, didn't get through the second. I'll make this quick.
I apologize. Yeah.
No, it's quite all right. But my question is, what do you look for in a good mentor, would you say?
In a good mentor?
Yeah.
I've only had one mentor in my life. And I can't say that I went about the process very deliberately, because he just made a movie that I loved and I wanted to interview him about the movie, and then he just became a friend, and then he took a personal interest in my work. So I'm not necessarily sure. But I think it would be to find a person who is this like a work mentor or life mentor?
Sort of work. I'm in a field that requires a sort of 2 to 5 year apprenticeship program. I have a relevant degree. It's 2 years. Without the degree, it's 5 years. And so there are essentially two people I would have to look out for.
Okay.
One is someone I hand my timesheets in, and the other is sort of a mentor. So going forward, what would you say I should look for?
I would look for someone who has the time. You know, someone who doesn't seem standoffish, but is actually looking to give something back to the relationship. I would also look for someone who doesn't reinforce your trauma patterns. Based on the first question that you asked, I'm sure you have a lot of trauma patterns. Maybe I'm inferring too much, but based on, you know, being like kind of looked over, looked past, neglected and stuff like that, you know, treated like almost a second class citizen, not being important. I think and maybe this is me projecting myself, you know, like I know for me, it's very normal to feel dismissed. And so you have to be super cognizant that just because it's normal to be dismissed doesn't mean your goal is to be dismissed.
Right.
So, you know, like there are people who grew up with very healthy self-esteem who you dismiss them once, they're gone, you know. But then there are people who grew up with extreme dismissal from their primary caregiver prior to the age of 6 or 7, and they're just used to being kind of rolled over. And I think you don't want an abuser in a mentor. Right. So finding a person who does not necessarily match your trauma type in that sense, number one. Number two, someone who has your respect, right? In terms of their standing in the field, like someone that you admire, respect. And then 3, a person who treats you with respect. So it has to be a two-way street. Like they obviously understand the mentor-mentee dynamic, but they would naturally have to treat you with a certain amount of respect. And then 4 is obviously like the willingness, the time that I would look for above all else is like even the greatest mentor in the world, if they can only make half an hour a month for you, it's just not worth it. You know what I mean? So it has to be somebody who has the willingness to take the time to understand your specific needs. So if you're doing interviews or you're meeting with people, I would look for people who ask you questions,
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my thought. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks a lot for calling in. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And best of luck. Yeah. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah. Cheers, man. Bye. Okay. So as these Pensare basketball lives sometimes go, we took a detour. We took a detour into mental health. We took a detour into life talk. We took a detour into trades talk. We talked about the game, and we are 2 hours and 16 minutes in. And I'm going to bet dollars to donuts that this stream, which has 220 live viewers right now, doesn't even have 200 likes. So if you could help influence that in a positive direction, that would be much appreciated. The Raptors play again on Thursday. We will definitely have a live for you prior to that. But yeah, man, please treat. The holidays can be so weird for people, man. I gotta tell you, like the holidays. One thing that I learned, so this was like 2010, 2011. I started this. It was like a charity. I won't say it was like a charity because I feel like charities need to work year round, and we pretty much worked 1 month of the year. But it was called Warming the Streets. So we would go with a bunch of our frat people and sorority, people, and we would go around and we would, fundraise. Like we would get money, donations, gift cards, warm clothes, all that stuff. And the only rule was that we weren't just going to drop it off to a shelter. We were actually going to take it and we were going to hand it person by person. And the genius behind this charity was that it wasn't just for the people who were being helped, but it was rather the people who were helping. A lot of people that we worked with, from the sorority world, and they said that they had much, much better interactions with homeless people after they did that. You're meeting people at sometimes their loneliest, right? When you come up to them with your shopping cart and you've got all these gifts and stuff. And it was always very interesting to observe the people who had actual empathy and the people who had entitlement in those situations. And I always used to say before we started, I said, we approach this entire process with empathy and never entitlement. Entitlement is you need to be grateful that I'm helping you. Empathy is you're a human being and I'm a human being, and you have no obligation to act one way or another towards me. And sometimes you go up to a person and you say, do you need a scarf? Do you need a warm drink? Do you need a sandwich? And they tell you to fuck off, right? Fuck right off. And you need to accept that. You know what I mean? This person does not want to be helped in the way that you want to help them. And I think a lot of people, their ego gets in the way in that moment and they start feeling like, oh, these people are all the same. That's entitlement. That's not empathy. That's ego. That's not empathy. It's the wrong E word. So when it goes badly in these situations, always take it back to empathy. Now, I'm assuming that a lot of you are not going to be volunteering at soup kitchens and running charities, but you are probably going to deal with at least one person in your life who isn't as cheery about the holidays as you are. Or maybe you are that one person who's not as cheery about the holidays. Or maybe, maybe you do volunteer at a soup kitchen. Maybe you do work with homeless people during the holidays. My suggestion to you in those moments is to always go back to empathy. Not everyone is going to feel the holiday cheer. Some people have lost a loved one very recently. Some people are going through a divorce. Some people are going through a breakup. Some people are going through some sort of, tragedy. And the holidays, quite frankly, are like this. It's almost like there's a happiness candy cane that people are just beating you over the head with. And I promise you, if your life is going badly, the holidays suck. Like they really, really, really suck. And it's very important in those moments to realize that just because something is like super fun for you, it doesn't make it super fun for everybody. So, as a general rule in life, always return back to empathy. You know what I mean? People don't have an obligation to treat you a certain way. You also don't have an obligation to stand there and be disrespected. And I think very often, you know what I mean? We sit there trying to figure out who was right and wrong in an interaction, whether that be retroactively trying to figure out if our parents were right or wrong for treating us certain ways, whether our grandparents were wrong or right for depriving us of certain things, or whether our boss is right to be breathing down our neck, or, to be holding us to a different standard, or maybe even double standards. I think You just have to take people where they are. And if where they are is where you don't want to be, you just need to be able to leave. I think that's a great place, to get to mentally as a person, where if a person that you're meeting for coffee is always 10 minutes late, instead of vilifying them, talking shit about them, threatening to not be their friend anymore, being rude to them, trying to get them back by being 20 minutes late for them, don't do that, man. Don't do that. There's like a quote that you should just live by. It's like, don't get even, don't get over, don't get under, just get done. You know what I mean? It's like life is very, very insanely short. When you look back on it, you'll see from the end, a large part of our members' life was that you cannot connect dots moving forward. You have to connect them going backwards. When you imagine the last day of your life, whatever that is, whether you're hanging off a cliff or whether you're, peacefully, in your bed in your 90s, or whether you're, plugged into a heart monitor in your 60s, whatever that last day is, you need to always keep that day in mind and realize that the small stuff, the little fights, the small arguments, the small losses, the Raptors not coming out and winning, in the grander scheme of things, these are all just minor distractions that will go away. You won't remember any of them. And just to always remember to focus on the big stuff. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Enjoy your night. Peace, y'all.